Good afternoon, y'all. I'm Charles Shapiro, President of World Affairs Council of Atlanta, and I'm delighted to introduce today's Young Leader program on travel post-COVID. Today's program is brought to you by the UPS Foundation, which provides a grant to support our Young Leader program. I want to welcome Allison Padilla-Goodman, who is Vice President for the Southeast of the Anti-Defamation League and a member of our board of directors, and welcome all the rest of you as well. Today's moderator is Aaron Capelouto. Aaron's been a young leader with the council for 3 years and been on our executive board for the past 2. Aaron works at Arcadis as a water engineer and project manager. And I'm going to get off and turn this over to you, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and thank you everybody for joining today. And a big thanks to our 2 fantastic panelists, Melissa Lee and Tara Cappel. I will introduce both of our panelists and we will get underway with a few questions that we prepared. Melissa Lee is the founder and CEO of the GREEN Program, an award-winning experiential education program for our world's future sustainability leaders. For her work with the GREEN Program, Melissa was recognized by the National Association of Women Business Owners as the Environmental Advocate of the Year, Philadelphia Magazine's Best of Philly Expander of Frontiers, and the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in education. Melissa has served as a U.S. Global Schools Ambassador for the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network and a Heinz Distinguished Lecturer at the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome, Melissa. And for our second panelist, Tara Cappel. Tara is a 2-time entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of 2 iconic travel brands, FTLO Travel and Sojourn. When Tara launched FTLO Travel in 2016, it quickly became one of the fastest growing group travel companies in the United States. The brand makes international travel more approachable for solo travelers in their 20s and 30s through connective and curated group trips. In just 4 years, it expanded to 100 departures in 20 plus countries and generated millions in annual revenue. When the pandemic hit in 2020, Cappel saw the opportunity to introduce her latest venture, Sojourn, a work and travel concept that combines immersive stays with experiential learning. Cappel holds a degree in economics from the University of Denver and calls Los Angeles home when she's not on the road. Welcome, Tara, and let's go ahead and get started, everybody, with a couple questions for our panelists. Beginning with Tara, could you just briefly explain, please, the missions of your organization and how you started in the travel and tourism industry? And then we'll ask Melissa the same question.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Exciting to be here today. I started For the Love of Travel 5 years ago with the mission of helping young people get out and see the world and promoting cross-cultural understanding. I started with very little experience in the travel industry, but I did have a lifelong passion for bringing cultures together. So I started a Model UN club at my high school in Idaho. I had studied abroad when I was 15, and then I went to school to study international relations, eventually did economics. But it's always been sort of my true north, and that's really what pushed me to start a group travel company.
Great, thanks so much, Tara. And a quick reminder for folks in the audience, if you don't mind using the raise your hand function on Zoom, we will be sure to call on your question in the order that we get it at around 12:30. Melissa, what are the missions of the GREEN Program, and how did you get your start in the travel tourism industry?
Thanks, Aaron. It's good to be here with everyone. So thanks for joining in on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Melissa Lee. I'm the founder and CEO of the GREEN Program, calling in from Philly this afternoon. And I have the pleasure to work and travel with amazing young leaders like Aaron back in the day when he was actually a student. He was one of our GREEN Program alumni. And our mission at the GREEN Program is to educate and empower future sustainability leaders through innovative models of experiential education, travel, and adventure. That's why we do what we do. how we're doing it and what we do is essentially a model of an innovative 8 to 10 days intensive program that brings students to the epicenters of sustainable development around the world. We work with university students, young professionals, and also faculty from all different universities around the world as well, and curate experiential lessons around sustainable development and bringing the textbook to life.
Great. Thank you both so much. Melissa, could you talk a little bit about how the GREEN program has had to recalibrate over the last 15 or 16 months and what that's looked like for your business?
Oh, yeah. So it's, I'm sure Tara will say the same. It's been a constant evolution. I think just with entrepreneurship in general, a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are innovative are able to be on your toes, be ready. You need to pivot when you need to pivot and be ready. But to be honest, this was one of the hardest challenges that I personally, and I'm sure everybody in the industry, has been affected by in multiple ways and multiple layers too. So, I think when looking back, every 2 months was probably another shift of a big decision that we had to make to try to predict the future of what we thought was going to be happening, which really, right, nobody actually knows. So I think being a mind reader, tapping into our psychic abilities as best as possible was something that we all had to do in a way. And that's, just another way of saying it's really hard. But for us, it wouldn't have been possible without our team. Our team is absolutely incredible. And we put our heads together, our team in Philly at HQ, and then our team globally. And first and foremost, like, health and safety is always the most important for our students. There's no way we can deliver as an impactful of an experience as we normally do on the GREEN program without the health and safety being first. So that's something that we always prioritize right from the beginning, following all CDC, following all travel advisories, but then also what's happening locally. But even more so than that, past the travel websites, we had to look into communities, like what's happening with the families that we stay with in Nepal. How are our partners doing? What's going on with the solar installations as well, and like how are those families being affected in different locations that we're in too. So there was a lot of case by case scenario building over time, and what we've done was pivot and open up and really double down on our sustainability and international global education around sustainable development. So we knew we couldn't travel, but what we could do was say we can still provide education. And that's really what we're here for at our core. So doubling down on that, we were still able to work with our universities and university partners and faculty abroad, open up one Learn Now, Travel Later model, which basically is exactly what it sounds like. So we'll take the online course component first for like 2-week online course, and then we'll be able to actually travel at a later date when it's safe to do so. And that's been amazing. It was something that we didn't know if it was here to stay. And that model actually has been so well received by our faculty and students that we're trying to find more ways that we can continue that even post-COVID as well. And then we also open professional development certificate programs, which are purely online professional development courses that have blockchain and AI built into it for our professional certificates as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. And I know, Tara, I'll ask you the same question about how has your business had to recalibrate, but I'm also curious as to whether you have seen a greater increase in demand for the domestic trips that FTLO plans because of the unpredictability, as Melissa stated.
So the core model of the For the Love of Travel business is small group trips for people between 25 and 39. So solo travelers just book spots on that trip. And at the beginning of 2020, we had over 100 departures for people to book. And we got about 5 of those out of the door before the pandemic hit. So there was a lot of recalibrating to do on an ops level, on a community level, on a marketing level. And I also second everything that Melissa said, because it really was trying to predict the future every 2 months. Initially, what we did is sort of just look to our true north of community and taking care of both our travelers and the communities that we enter. So we did a couple of things like host weekly trivia nights that would bring people together while they were stuck at their homes and could facilitate them meeting past or meeting future travel mates or connecting with past ones. We also launched a line of merchandise and sent the proceeds to feed families in Colombia who were out of work in the tourism industry. And so we also planned a line of domestic trips, which we didn't end up launching for 2020 because we didn't think that the testing was enough that we could for sure run a safe trip. So we pretty much didn't run any trips for a year. And when we realized that we were kind of going to be in it for the long haul, we looked at what impacts the pandemic would have on the way people live and work and travel and what opportunities there might be there. And what we did is actually launch a completely new brand in addition to the For the Love of Travel brand. And that brand is Sojourn, which is essentially we call it a modern study abroad for young professionals. So it's 4-week stays in different places around the world where you live and you work and you have a community of people to connect with. And then in your downtime, we've curated a curriculum of activities that help you learn about a specific theme. And the theme is relevant to that destination so that the actual location can be sort of your teacher. So the first 4 that we launched for this year are philosophy in Greece, wine in Tuscany, mental wellness in Bali, and Spanish language in Colombia. So that was our big shift. And now and actually those have really, I think, inspired people. And we have now a wait list of over 4,000 people for our 2022 chapters. So we're very excited about that opportunity to have come out of this. And our FTLO bookings are picking back up again. We actually, as of this week, hit our 2019 numbers. So we definitely see the demand coming back and there being a lot of pent up demand for travel. Our domestic trips actually are not what people are looking for. They're looking to get back out into the world and experience other cultures. And I think we sort of have this, people have spent a year analyzing their lives, and when travel was taken away, they realized how much they loved it and how important it was to them. And so we're seeing the term revenge travel is being thrown around. I don't love that term, but we definitely see an influx of demand coming right now.
Got it. Thank you so much. You had a nice segue into my next question, but pivot back to Melissa. Do you anticipate any sort of hesitancy either from possible students that the Green program would find especially appealing, or their parents to allow international travel? And what is the Green program doing to help kind of massage those concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. So, when we're looking at students, you just mentioned 2 different things. So students in general, ready to go. They're young 20s, maybe 18, 19 years old at the very earliest, up until their 20s. They're ready to go. They're ready to, what Tara said exactly, break out of their comfort zones again, experience something new, get out of the dorm room, get out of our office, our work from home space. So that is not the problem. We know that just in terms of the market, university students and millennials, centennials are the ones who are going to be the highest risk takers in regards to travel and when we reopen travel again. When we're talking about parents, of course, that's different. They're always going to be more concerned for their student. We need to make sure communication is really on key and on point for safety protocols, our operations protocols, training protocols, what's happening in the country at the time, what happens if something happens, right? Having everything set and ready to go. And then we also work with a lot of universities. So many universities, our students represent about 470 universities across 70 countries around the world. And many universities are not restarting travel until 2022. So that has been something where you're working with just very large institutions and their regulations, rightfully so, because they also have to worry about if a student travels and they come back, they're re-entering back into another society of their own university campus, which can be affected just as directly as well. So to answer the second part of your question, it really comes down to concise communication, clear communication, making sure that we've been able to be transparent every step along the way with every single one of the stakeholders involved, from the student to the universities that we work with and their parents as well as our partners and our teams around the world too. So yeah, our team has done an incredible job maintaining that communication and just acting really swiftly with that. So I don't think it would have been possible really to even get to this point through COVID without that.
Great, thank you so much. And it sounds like Tara, for your potential travelers who will hopefully book FTLO trips, it doesn't sound like there is too much hesitancy about hitting the open air, road, and sea again. Would you say that's correct?
I think there's definitely some hesitancy, but we, over the past 15 months, tried to be as communicative and flexible as possible. And I think that is making us stand out for our travelers when they're thinking about booking trips, because they know we have our back and that at the end of the day, our goal is to do right by all of our stakeholders. So there's definitely hesitancy, but I would almost say that hesitancy is in our favor because it makes people appreciate the support and knowledge that we have as a tour operator.
Transitioning a little bit to, I want to get both of your opinions on, kind of the disproportionate vaccination rates that we're seeing as we look at the developing world versus the non-developing world, or the developed world, excuse me, versus the developing world. But do you envision COVID-19, Melissa, resulting in international travel really only being a luxury for citizens of developed nations?
To be honest, travel has probably always been a luxury for wealthier countries and people from these developed nations as well. But absolutely, this, in the lens of sustainable development, poor and less developed countries are the ones that are always going to be affected the most disproportionately to anything regarding livelihood, right? And sure, travel is definitely one of them. So absolutely, right now, the US, we have a 46% fully vaccination rate. So we're not even near herd immunity, which there's experts are saying 60 to 80% is what we need for herd immunity. But when we talk about Nepal, one of our programs there, they're at 2% fully vaccinated. And they're predicting that it's going to take another year and a half just to get to 10% vaccination rate. So absolutely, and travel, I think we have to also look at travel as an industry in terms of tourism and what that also means for each destination too. And tourism and the travel industry provides 100 million jobs that have been at risk. 54% of those jobs are occupied by women. So this is something that, sure, yes, travel, but this is also setting these communities back, going to school in person again, working again, providing for their families, building local economies. And a lot of that is intersected by tourism based on work and livelihoods. But yeah, I think of course, we're all hoping that the disproportion will level out a little bit more when it comes to health and safety, poverty, food, everything regarding sustainable development. And the intersection between what's happening with the vaccines and sustainable development is definitely very clear right now. And we're going to be seeing that the next few years and the ripple effects of that for other countries.
I completely agree with Melissa. I think that it certainly could create more inequalities, but travel is already a luxury and a privilege for many reasons. And of the reasons we should be prioritizing vaccinating the developing world, international travel, at least in terms of passport privilege, is probably on the lower rung of the important reasons.
Tara, how is your organization? I know FTLO has several trips to countries planned that may not open their borders until perhaps even post 2022. How are you all able to balance kind of the business side with the unpredictability of certain developing nations that require, that still have their borders closed for the foreseeable future?
We've been making decisions on trips on a rolling basis between 45 days and 60 days out. One of the things we really take into consideration is how many people's livelihoods depend on tourism, and where is the balance of what is safe and for the community and for travelers, and what are the economic needs of the community. So obviously, if a country's borders are closed, we won't be able to go, but we're trying not to cancel anything before it's absolutely necessary.
Great, thank you. Melissa, what are your thoughts on, how the standard average traveler can start to be impact conscious with regards to certain travel habits? What does that look like in the future?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. I think a lot of this, when we look at travel, when we look at sustainability, so much of it is just slowing down what you're already doing and being a little bit more intentional, and doing it imperfectly, but at least trying, right? So there's I don't think that there's a full way of being absolutely sustainable unless you're, going off grid, you're doing some backpacking, you walk there in your backyard, you took the trail, right? Like it's very difficult for a human to be completely perfect in a sustainable world right now. But I'm a big believer in meeting people where they are. And I think that we need millions and millions more people doing something better, one thing better than just a small group doing it absolutely perfectly when it comes to social impact or sustainability. So when we're looking at travel, there's a few ways. I think one of the most important things is just looking at where you're spending your dollar. Everything from the flight that you're purchasing. If you do need to purchase a flight, we know that there's less emissions for a flight that flies round trip a flight that flies direct than there is for a flight that has to go on a few different layovers, because you have the most emissions happening on takeoff and landing or mostly takeoff, but on these flights. So you want to look at more direct flights if you need to fly. Where are you staying? Is that, if it is a hotel, is it a locally owned hotel? Are those dollars staying in the country? Or is it, a big chain that you don't really need to be staying at if you're trying to really experience the whole country that you're in? There's so many opportunities, from the B&Bs or Airbnbs to different homestay opportunities to really just immerse yourself. And there's so many options based on your comfortability. Travel lightly, I think, is something that we don't think about too much. I have practiced so many years of just traveling with a backpack at this point for a month, and being able to cut down to what you actually need, because we don't realize, again, how much weight in our luggage actually goes on these flights for the emissions. And the heavier your bags are, the heavier the luggage is, the heavier the plane is, the more fuel that we're consuming as well. So every little piece along the way, and this is all before you even land, of how you can be more sustainable. So where you get the food, where it's being sourced, just looking at where your dollar is staying, I think that's been really important. And thinking about culture in a way, and stepping back and reflecting and saying, are you doing tours, or are you signing up for experiences and with how locals want their culture to be perceived, really? Or is it just the Americanized version of what we think we want to be seeing as the culture? So the intention behind every single step of the way is important, but I think that's also why organizations like what For the Love of Travel, Sojourn, and the Green Program were born from, is to be able to help curate these experiences for more people to get authentic, but in ways and best practices that are more sustainable and socially impactful as well.
Great, thank you so much. A lot of good things to consider as we start to get back out on the road or the air. Tara, what are your thoughts moving forward about countries requiring either some sort of vaccination card or form? Is this a trend that we can expect to see into the future, into the foreseeable future?
I think some sort of health passport will come out. I'm in Europe right now, and there's a lot of discussion around the green pass, they're calling it. I don't think it will be vaccine specific because there are obviously some people who can't get the vaccine. And in Europe, if you can show proof of recovery, you also get a pass. So I think, and if you have a recent COVID test, so less than a vaccine passport, I think there could be more of a health passport in general.
Melissa, what are your thoughts on vaccine passports and where we might expect to see them in certain countries?
Yeah, I think it's necessary. You know, it's going to be necessary when you are taking in millions of tourists around over the years and each destination in order to actually manage it and have one way of actually like understanding what's happening and being able to measure and protect your citizens and the travelers who are coming into your city, into your country as well. I think it's important. What Tara was saying, we are seeing more of just options, you know, so if countries don't actually require you to have the vaccine, then they might require you to make sure you do the tests and the 14-day quarantine or a 10-day quarantine or, you know, X, Y, and Z. Different places have different restrictions and rules. But I do think, you know, at least from the educational perspective as well and running group programs, it's really helpful to know that from a health and safety standard, like everybody is safe. They're practicing health and safety for the betterment of themselves, the whole group, and the communities that we're traveling in as well. So it's interesting to see how it'll roll out in the next few months, probably.
And final question here, I'm curious if to wrap up, if we can get both of your tips, opinions, considerations on how travelers this year and probably into 2022 can travel safely, responsibly, and sustainably. Start with Tara.
Well, like Melissa said, I think knowing where your dollar is going, especially in this time when there's so many small businesses that are trying to recover from an extremely difficult year. So I think that would be the number one piece of advice I have for people trying to travel consciously. You know, make sure, at the end of the day, tourism is an economic exchange. You get to experience the magic of someone's community and culture, but you should pay for that, and you should be paying into the community to help maintain their livelihood. So I think knowing where your dollar goes is by far the most important thing you can do. If you're able to, I think getting vaccinated is responsible if you want to travel internationally this year, both from not having to worry about getting sick abroad, but also having the peace of mind that you're not bringing anything into these communities. And then I think as remote work becomes more acceptable, travel more slowly. Go post up somewhere for a week or a month with Sojourn and really immerse yourself in the community and give yourself time to explore the little gems nearby, because they are even more excited to have tourists come visit them because they're not over touristed. So, I mean, I was in Siena last weekend and I went to this tiny little town called Certaldo, and there was a handful of tourists there. And it was so magical to be able to experience this because I had the time to, because I was based there for a week. So that would be overall my advice for getting back out there and traveling.
Yeah, those are great, Tara. I would add to that, like ask ourselves how we're going to do it better this time, because to be honest, we can't do like from an individual and societal standpoint or species standpoint, we can't go back to what we were doing and get ourselves back into this mess that we were just in this pandemic. So what a great opportunity now to say, we just had a chance to reset and hit that reset button for an entire world. So what would we be able to do to help with that and every other piece of our lives that we're doing now, whether it's sustainability, travel, work, you name it. So, maybe pick one thing that you want to do better in terms of your travel, and whether it's go slower, I think this like road tripping experience, and this is something that's so important to so many millennials and centennials now, of just like being able to travel, like get in a van and just like see your own hometown and your own country, so that's been really eye-opening too, but it's a great opportunity to do something different that you wouldn't have done earlier. And set new standards for yourself of how you want to be a better traveler for the world and the community that you're being involved in. And there's this thing with like travel that's been happening so much more now, where it's like travel and, so like Sojourn, travel and work, or green program, travel and sustainability, right? Or so there's always this intersectionality of what's happening with what travelers want nowadays. Like it's not just like travel and it's just not just travel. You want to travel and either sit on the beach and just do the beach, or have another part of it that you want to get out of it too. So I think it's exciting to just see like what you can be building your life of travel and bringing travel into your life earlier than later, because generations in the past, you have to wait until you're out of work or you're retired to be able to take the first trip of your life. And how lucky are we, a lot of us, to be able to say, or I should say some of us, that we'd be able to expand past that and start doing these earlier in other parts of our lives too.
Thank you both so much for those really wonderful insights. Now I want to open it up to our audience and see if we have any questions for our panelists before we transition back to Ambassador Shapiro. It looks like I see Ayse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Ayse.
Ayse, excuse me.
Name.
It is. Go ahead. Thank you.
You did well. Thank you. I'm an international trade consultant, speaker, and trainer. And I have been in business over 5 decades, a world traveler, and worked also in the hospitality industry. Worked for Hyatt Corporation as marketing person. And just 2 years ago, I wrote a book for millennials, The Millennial Global Edge, and very much emphasized on what travel means based on my experience. Travel the world, Asia, Europe, Middle East. I think global education, if we think about the overall, travel happens to be the important component of that global education. Meeting the people up close and personal in your foreign trips. I spoke in different countries, attended global women's summits. It was such a great learning experience. And I'd like to congratulate Tara and Melissa to get this idea in very young age and trying to just sharing with the younger people and how important it is. It is really something. Kudos to you. And keep them going. And the way I see COVID, I see as temporary. Already one of my women's summit, they opened the doors for summit meeting in Lisbon this October. So there's hope. And it's just a matter of getting more people to your cause, because it's a valuable cause. And we live in an interconnected economy. What you're doing is amazing. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
And I'd
so
like to
much.
also connect with you guys and share my website and everything and see what I can do for you as somebody who had been there and done that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's so wonderfully kind. I'd love to connect.
Yes, and I'll pick up the book too.
It's in Amazon, yeah, Amazon.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any remaining questions for our panelists, please use the raise hand function on in Zoom. Valoran had posted some instructions in the chat about how to access that function. Looks like Chase, go ahead.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, thanks for being here, Melissa and Tara. Excellent conversation. My name's Chase. I'm also on the Young Leaders Executive Board with Aaron. Question about, he mentioned, being a luxury with, more developed countries as far as traveling, but my question is within countries, what kind of programs do you guys see to, help lower income young folks, see the world too? Because I know when I traveled or studied abroad in my undergraduate program, it was honestly probably almost more expensive than a whole semester of course load. So thanks.
Yeah, Chase, that's such a great question. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I started the Green Program when I was 19 years old, and a student who could not afford traditional study abroad either. So, the reason why our programs were able to fit in up to 3 graduate credits in just 8 to 10 days abroad over winter, spring, and summer break is because we wanted to intentionally build something with higher accessibility for more students who couldn't afford it, or didn't have the time. So our programs are nearly 90% less cost than the traditional semester a year abroad, and we were built around that. And because of that, in our programs now, even with our online programs, which are at an even lower cost, those are almost 80% cheaper, less cost than our in-person programs. We have such great representation from so many underserved communities and backgrounds that traditional study abroad industries don't see. So that's something that's been really important to us. But to answer your question, I know there's besides the model itself, there's always different scholarship opportunities, a lot of different organizations that are always encouraging and trying to put out more financial opportunities. And we just launched another scholarship earlier yesterday as well for more students too. So it's comes down to, the grants, but also the way you build it and making sure that all the stakeholders involved are in for it, for the ethos, and the mission of the organization too. So I know all of our partners have been dedicated to that and our mission there as well.
I can speak to that as well. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm so excited about Sojourn and slow travel in general, because when you have a lot of people going for a short amount of time to one place, they tend to make the prices higher. With Sojourn, we've actually been able to charge or put the cost as the same amount as a week-long FTLO trip. And they start for 4 weeks around $2,800 is the lowest one that we have priced right now. And on top of that, our goal is to start partnering with companies. And because we have this educational component to our programs, talk with them about subsidizing that as growth programs essentially for their employees. So we're super committed to making travel as more accessible to all income levels. So thank you for bringing that up. That's definitely top of mind for us.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Chase. Addie, looks like I saw your hand, and then we'll go to Catherine if as time allows.
Hey guys, I'm also on the e-board with Aaron, and I've totally enjoyed hearing about travel since I'm so excited to get back at it. I might be one of those revenge travelers they're talking about. But my question is about people, specifically young adults who may travel for work a lot. Before the pandemic, I traveled about anywhere from 50 to 75% of the time. And what you guys said about, paying attention to where your dollar is spent really stuck out to me. And I was thinking well, sometimes you don't really, when you're traveling for work, you don't really get to decide. Your company might decide where they're going to put you up in a hotel or what flight you might get or things like that. But yeah, just wondering if you guys have any thoughts on traveling, in a conscious, sustainable way when you're traveling for work.
I would definitely recommend suggesting hotels, independently owned hotels, or even locally owned Airbnbs or other home share options, if that's an option for your company. Obviously, there's so many locally owned restaurants and shops. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is shop locally at little boutiques when I go places. So there's definitely ways to support the community that you're going to, even if you don't have control over the big spend items.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say to, depending on what company you're working for, their size, their process, but I would say maybe for larger companies, sometimes they have like a procurement office or sustainability or CSR office. You wouldn't expect it, but sometimes those decisions are made by them because it has to be pushed by them to change the supply chain of what's happening in the company and where they're spending their dollar. So it could be worth having a conversation, if that's appropriate for your company, to talk to them and see if that's something that you would even offer looking into, and at the end of the day, like any company, as long as the budget is the same, and then you can tell them that they're able to say that they're being a little bit more socially responsible and sustainable in their efforts. I think that's a huge win for them if you're able to keep it the same budget or even less. So unfortunately, I think a lot of companies make decisions that way. So I would recommend that in one way. And sometimes they just don't know either. It might sound great, but they wouldn't know where to start. So, if it's like a short conference or trip that you're going to, you can always just Google a few places that might, be practicing things in a way that seem a little bit more ethical or in line with what you're doing, and just present it to them and see what they think. But again, I think the dollars and cents is where it's going to matter for them.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you both so much. And thank you, Addie, for your question. We have time for one more. Catherine, please go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you guys so much for joining and speaking today. I mean, this was so great to hear all about this, and I'm kind of like Addie, I'm ready to get back and go out on a trip somewhere. But kind of to Addie's point as well, do you guys find that the participants that are going on trips, and maybe more so with the Sojourn that are coming out, people or the companies that these people work for reacting really well to this, or kind of even helping to support in some way, or, are there some tips that you could give people to kind of, really push their companies or kind of incentivize their companies to help support them and financially, or just the time-wise for work going to these programs? Do you have kind of any tips for that? On how to ask for something like that?
So with Sojourn, we've been putting together materials that you're able to present to your work. I'm also happy to speak with anyone's HR department to start getting a partnership in there. But there's definitely, I think one of the biggest concerns for companies when it comes to working abroad, even for a short amount of time, is the tax implications. So we have a lot of resources that you can pull to present to them. And especially if you're already working remotely, at least part of the time, why not be able to work from Bali or Mexico or Colombia or somewhere really cool? So I think that companies will start becoming more open to the idea, especially as the confusion around tax implications gets smoothed over. And there's a lot of companies who are announcing work from anywhere policies. So Google, for example, just announced that you can have 4 weeks work from anywhere. And that, I think, is a huge perk. And the more companies who do that, the more companies who will jump on board, because if when it comes to hiring, if you have the chance to work for somewhere that allows you to go work from Australia or somewhere that you've always dreamed of being, I would choose that one. So we do that. But I think it'll become more common, and I think it'll be easier to convince your employer to allow you to go. And we also have resources if you need them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Absolutely. I think, for us, we've worked a lot with students more so on how to accredit the programs and their experiences that they're having, as well as professionals too. So I think what we've seen in the past is that, we've had interns, for example, and companies actually fund their interns to come on our programs because they're looking for sustainability training for their students. And then vice versa, students or young professionals who are going to their corporations and not saying like, hey, one, can I go, but two, can you pay for it? That's basically, any way that you can help make the connection between how this trip or organization will help benefit you as an employee, as a team member, boost morale in the company, you name it, like team training, anything like this, are all great words that I think any employer wants to hear, that you're going out of your way to bring these opportunities to the table for yourself or your colleagues as well, to just be better at what you do. And there's so much out there now in terms of just like how good travel is for you and how these new experiences and new communities are good for your mental health, your well-being, which all will tie into the work and productivity as an employee too. So yeah, call Tara or me and we'll help you make the case.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you, Melissa and Tara. Now back to Ambassador Shapiro for a few announcements.
Yeah, I want to thank y'all. This was just terrific. I got a lot out of it, and I hope everybody else did as well. And I'm ready to start traveling, and with some serious revenge travel. We've got some upcoming programs I've got to advertise here so you can travel without traveling. Tomorrow, June 23rd at noon, we've got a program on Korea-US relations with Kathy Stevens and Mark Lippert, both former US ambassadors to the Republic of Korea, are going to talk about US-Korea relations under Presidents Moon and Biden. And then next week, June 30th at noon, we have a program on Nigeria, Freedom of Speech Under Siege with Kahinda Togun, Senior Director, Policy and Government Relations from Humanity United. I want to thank from our staff, Valerie Lopez DeFrank, our producer, Laura Brower, our social media specialist, Hina Rennie, our interim program director, and our intern, Josephine Steenbergen. And thanks again to Melissa, Tara, and Aaron. I'm thinking about, I'm taking two things away: travel lightly, travel slowly. I think that's such a great concept for all of us to consider as we travel. And that's really, that's the takeaway. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody contacts y'all and travels lightly and travels slowly, spends time, gets to learn the culture and the place where they're going and learn the language. Okay, cool. Thank you all very much. Everybody have a great
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.